How do you think that Ukraine can actually get out of this crisis, or can it actually get out of this crisis totally at all?
Country like Ukraine, just like cracked into a very narrow space among or between the Eastern and the Western. So in my understanding, Ukraine will be constantly applying to join the NATO for protecting its national security. And for Russia, I fully assure that Russia will, for its national interest, will never give away to it.
So Professor Cui, what is your take on that?
It's not only the issue for Ukraine,
Right.
even it's a very, very critical part. Also, firstly, we need to understand what's a real concern from Ukraine side. Firstly, how to keep the so-called integration of territory. I think it's a very, very big question or big requirement from Ukraine. So that's the reason why I think for every side, they need to go back to the Minsk agreement. And also, another big issue is how could Ukraine and Russia, both two countries, they can build up or restore a director or maybe more, benign relations. I think it's a very, very important precondition for Ukraine to get maybe a more safe environment. The third one is how could European countries, Russia, and even Ukraine itself, to deal with very, very big uncertainties brought by United States. Also, the current situation, even a very, very big factor is the change of the policy of Washington towards Russia, towards the European Union, and even towards Ukraine.
Right.
So I think it's very, very critical for Ukraine to maybe to help United States to understand a real requirement from Ukraine,
Right.
and to understand what's the real situation, especially not only from a historical background and also even from the feeling of average people between Ukraine and Russia. So I think it will give some opportunities once we could get all of the conditions ready.
Right. So to understand the demand is actually very important for the problem resolution. So Pavel, what's your take on that? What do you think is the most critical factors to get this thing resolved and get Ukraine out of this crisis?
The good news is that apparently there's going to be a military de-escalation happening right now, though this is provisional data, and it will take time, say like the Russian cruiser Varyag, which is the flagship of the Pacific Fleet. It's now in the Mediterranean. It will take it more than a month to go back to Vladivostok. But it will take time to de-escalate, but that's good. There's going to be negotiations. That's also good. But what these negotiations can achieve right now, the positions are so diverse, it's not clear, is there a path to find a permanent solution. If there is no permanent solution, such crises will continue to happen, as Russian president has said, that if there's no security for us, there's no security for anyone, basically, and that there's going to be Russian military technical response. That was not spelled out what that will be, but the idea is to create more insecurity for the Western powers, that they would force them to find a political solution that's to Russia's liking. But of course, they can also, in return, project more instability. So if there's optimism right now in the short run, in the future, even this year later on, there's less optimism. For at least I don't see right now a direct pathway to a permanent solution.